And welcome to this week's edition of the Life and Legacy Show, sponsored by the Sechler Law Firm, where great families make great estate plans. My name is Tim Sechler. I am a certified elder law attorney with my primary office being in Cranberry Township. And we do this radio show each and every week to give you the information I think you need to know to make good estate planning decisions for yourself, your family, your finances. I've always been of the opinion that if we focus on the finance first, we'll be able to, if we focus on the education first, then we'll be able to make good financial and legal decisions in the best interest of your family. So I've been doing this radio show. We're well over 100 episodes at this point, and there's tons of information. You can find all the links to all the past episodes at sechlerlawfirm.com, SECHLER. lawfirm.com, and you'll find all types of videos and different information. And if the things that I talk about here are of any interest to you, you ought to check out one of our upcoming estate planning workshops where we take a deeper dive on things like wills and trusts and how you can protect yourself from some of these harsh governmental rules, particularly the ones that have to do with long-term care and how do you get your long-term care. And so, but remember, this show is for your education. It is for your information. Do not make legal decisions based on what you hear on this or any other radio show. If you need some legal help, reach out. We're available anytime at 724-546-4227. Again, 724-546-4227. All right. So sometimes I come to the show wanting to talk about like a specific legal issue. Sometimes it's more current event. And this week is going to be one that's more current event. You know, one of the headlines this past week was about a childhood hero of mine, at least in the in the movie industry, and that's Bruce Willis. So I grew up in the age where, in my formative years, Bruce Willis was just killing bad guys and was the man's man, and probably had some deep rooted influence on my decision to eventually like join the military and do some different things. And so I can remember, I didn't look up the years, but I was, let's just say it was around my formative years, my puberty years, whatever, 10 to 14 years old when Bruce Willis was making these movies like Die Hard. Right. And he was just like, I imagine that Bruce Willis to me was kind of like one of these guys like, I don't know. John Wayne might have been to my dad, right? And so the news about Bruce Willis this week follows up some news from last year where he was having some aphasia, some challenge with speaking and comprehensive language and different things. And now it comes out that was caused by what's called frontotemporal dementia, which is a really aggressive form of dementia. And this, like, to me, when I read the article in the last couple of days here, was like, man, it to me was a bit of a wake up call because he's the tough guy, right? He's got the one liners. He probably has the first movie where I ever heard the MF curse word put together, yippee ki than those words. And like he was this like guy that always in my mind, when I would think about him, he was obviously an intelligent and still is an intelligent actor, but just an idol in a way. And here he is suffering at a very young age with this thing called frontotemporal dementia. So what is it? And and one of the crazy things about this particular ailment, as compared to say like Alzheimer's disease, is it actually hits people at a younger age. The condition typically strikes between the ages of 45 and 64. So we're not talking about people in their 80s with this form of dementia. It's hitting younger people. And early, just like what has apparently been happening with Bruce Willis, it causes challenges with communication. And another thing that it has been my experience in working with my clients who deal with this is it creates challenging behavioral issues. The person that has it no longer behaves the way that they used to, and oftentimes it causes them to do things that would appear out of character. angry, mean, type things, and it really is a difficult issue, not only for the patient but also for the family that has to take care of them. Um, and unlike dementia, unlike Alzheimer's Association, which has some treatments to um, at least slow down the impacts of the disease, there's not much that they have to deal with what's called FTD, frontotemporal dementia. And so it's really, my thought goes out to him, my thought goes out to his family. But I saw a statement that was put out by his family, and the family said that we hope that this, by us releasing this, that it causes some awareness of this issue, and could maybe lead to some research and whatnot. And what I want to do is use this terrible instance as a way to bring awareness to the fact that we're not immune to these things. Dementia is just not something that happens only in people 85 years and older. Um, Dementia happens to the tough guys too. And knowing that, I've shared on the radio show a whole bunch of times that the reason I do what I do is because my grandfather, who was an Alzheimer's patient, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, ended up having dementia and ended up having to go to a nursing home where he lived for 10 years. And, nursing homes, today's rates are about around Pennsylvania between $13,000 and $14,000 a month, right? So you take $14,000 a month and multiply it by 12 months. We're talking about $160,000 a year in a nursing home, and this to me is a situation where our country, our government system, our healthcare system for seniors is fundamentally failing people, because you don't get any financial help for long-term care until you're essentially broke, right? Which is not the case with other issues. If we were talking about um, someone who has cancer, cancer is terrible, dementia is terrible, they're all terrible. But somebody who has cancer and is over 65 years old, their care is largely paid for by Medicare. See, most seniors rely on Medicare for their health care. Medicare is in the acute care business. Um, Medications, surgeries, hospitalizations. If I have a type of cancer that may be treated with a type of surgery and I'm over 65, well, that care is going to be paid for by Medicare. Now, coinsurance, copays, yeah, but Medicare is doing the heavy lifting. But if the healthcare issue I eventually have um, results in the need for custodial long-term care, like a nursing home, Medicare doesn't pay for that. So we're treating people with dementia differently than we're treating people with cancer. And I don't understand why there's any virtue in that. Um, shouldn't we just take care of our seniors when they're sick? But, that's not what happens. And so no one other than, no one's trying to fix this. If you, this is not a partisan issue. There's no side in Congress saying, let's fix this with any real gusto. They're not trying to fix it. And so if you listen to what the Alzheimer's Association is saying, and if you can take an example like Bruce Willis getting dementia in his early years as lessons that we can learn, because what the Alzheimer's Association is telling us is that 1 in 3 seniors will have dementia. 1 in 3. We're not talking about 1 in 20 or 1 in 10. We're talking about 1 in 3. And, if 1 in 3 of us are going to have dementia, and nursing homes are $160,000 a year, what then must be true is that families are going broke, because middle-class families, I don't know what today's definition from a net worth standpoint equals a middle-class family, but I can tell you my understanding of middle-class families is you can't take $160,000 annual hits for very long before you're dead broke, right? And And so we have a situation, and I can tell you that it's occurring because people come to my office all the time in this situation where they've had a nursing home admission and they're going through their money, and they want to know, is there anything we can do to protect money? Because maybe we're talking about a married couple, and maybe dad is the one in the nursing home, and maybe mom. Like, consider Bruce Willis's situation. I don't know how old his wife is, but if Bruce is in his 60s and his wife is in her 60s, she may live another 30 years, right? And now, I don't think that we have to worry about Bruce Willis and his financial situation. But if you take a guy that lives up the street from you in his 60s and his wife is in her 60s, and maybe he has this terrible ailment and he may need some sort of custodial long term care for years, what position does that leave his wife in? A lot of times, and a lot of times in with baby boomers in particular, listen, the American baby boomer owns their money in two places. It is in their home equity, and it is in retirement accounts, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs. Yeah, there are other assets that they own, life insurance contracts, annuities, different investment accounts. But far and wide, most of the baby boomer money is in home equity and retirement accounts. And retirement accounts are individually owned, right? It's an IRA, it's my account. But when I pass away, I leave it to my spouse. And then it's her account, right? They're not joint. And what happens is, in a lot of cases, families have most of their net investment, their investments in one spouse's name. Generationally speaking, baby boomers, most of it is in the husband's name. He was probably the higher wage earner. And when he gets sick, if we had not Bruce Willis, the Hollywood movie star, but if we had Bruce Willis, the guy who lives up the street, get sick with dementia, and the retirement account is in his name, that is fully available for his long-term care. So not only are we paying $13,000 or $14,000 a month in long-term care, we are also paying income taxes to get the money out of the retirement account to pay the $13,000 or $14,000 a month in long-term care. And people are going broke, and it's scary, scary stuff. And so, if you would like to learn more about what you can do about it, I suggest you come to one of our 3 Secrets workshops, where we talk about long-term care. We talk about estate planning tools like wills and trusts, and we talk about how you can get really good estate planning without breaking the bank. This does not have to be, you know, one of the reasons that I've seen people not doing good estate plan is it was too expensive. I knew that there was this option, but it was like $9,000 or $10,000, and we couldn't spend that much money. And so we've been working on that, and we've been able to do this type of planning way more reasonably priced. And there's really no reason now to not consider this. But what you have to do is you have to become educated on these options. Nobody's going to do this for you, folks. You have to come to one of the seminars. You have to learn about it. You have to understand, oh, there's a thing I could do where all I really have to do is put my house in a trust, and I can protect significant money from long-term care expenses. And I can make sure that my spouse still has a home to live in, and I can make sure that my spouse has some money in the bank. And all I really needed to do was put my house in a trust. And once you realize that, maybe that's what you need to take the steps to protect yourself, protect your funds and your family. I've done other episodes about the nuances of asset protection trusts. Not every trust protects assets. You need to work with somebody that's in the elder law industry that knows what they're doing. But when, if the things that I'm saying, if the things that we can learn from Mr. Willis going through this issue is this. Here's my take. One, you're not going to prevent your need for long-term care. I mean, there are things you can do to live healthier, but from what I understand, Bruce Willis lived a pretty healthy life. He's always in shape. So even the tough guys get dementia, right? Um, and so when it happens, if it happens, when it happens, we're all going to have some sort of healthcare issue. When it happens, we can't really prevent the fact that we're going to get sick. And when you get sick, that impacts you in a number of ways, right? It impacts you from the need for care. I mean, you just flat out may need more people around you. You may need some form of medication. You may need to change your living arrangement. You may need to change a lot if you have one of these issues. The second thing is it impacts a family at a social level, right? Frontotemporal dementia often works to cause behavioral issues in the victims and in patients. Um, and those behavioral issues can get ugly. And so then now dad is saying this to mom, or dad did this thing. And it's not dad that we've known for 60 years driving this behavior. It's this disease. But it's kind of hard to separate the two. And it impacts the way that spouses see their husband. It impacts the way that kids see their dad. It impacts on a more social level. Mom is stressed the heck out in a lot of these situations. And so then you look at other arrangements, right? But now dad's in a nursing home. And I have never met a spouse who didn't feel guilty when the sick spouse went to a nursing home. There's always, always, always a level of guilt associated with this. And there shouldn't be, because usually that nursing home placement is in best interest, is in the patient's best interest. But there's this like notion that I'm going to keep you at home as long, forever. And it's just not possible in a lot of situations. A lot of these ailments, it just doesn't work that way. And so we need more help than mom can provide, or maybe mom has her own healthcare issues in this circumstance. And so we got to look at alternative arrangements. And so then from a social level, now there's a level of guilt at home. There's a level of, or sometimes maybe it falls on the adult children, and you've got the local children who are here every day and see what's going on. And you got the other child who lives in St. Louis, and he doesn't know, or she doesn't know what's going on with dad. And so when the siblings say, hey, we need to look at nursing homes, the person in St. Louis says, no, we don't. Dad's staying at home. He said he wants to stay at home. Yeah, but you don't understand. You're not here. Well, we're keeping dad at home. And then now there's confrontation between the kids, and sometimes we've seen those relationships fall apart. It's just terrible, terrible stuff, right? But the third component, and the one that really you can put in work to protect yourself from, is that in these situations, there is always a financial burden put on the family, because our government system is failing seniors. And so now, where if my dad had cancer, which I hope he never does, his Medicare could pay for it. So financially, he's okay. But if my dad has dementia, Medicare won't pay for it. So now he's he's dealing with the terrible illness and financial stress. And so the things that you can do often include protecting assets ahead of time, which is why we do the 3 Secrets workshops. The workshop teaches you how these government rules work, and then we teach you how trusts can help protect resources. And we've come up with a way where you can protect your family, you can protect your house, you can protect your money, you can make sure that your spouse has a home to live in, you can make sure that the kids still receive an inheritance if you understand the rules of the game. Understanding the rules of the game often means when you get sick, you probably shouldn't own all the resources in your own name. That's just the way that it works. And so we do this radio show in part because we want you to know that these tools exist. Because if you go to a local corner attorney's office and you ask him or her about this stuff, there's this thing in the legal space where if you ask a dozen attorneys what should be in your estate plan, you're going to get one of 2 responses. The first response will be, listen, you're not super wealthy. All you need is a simple will. Okay. Now, That response usually comes from two places. One, you went to an attorney who does real estate on Monday, and they do traffic tickets on Tuesday, and they do divorces on Wednesday, and they write wills on Thursday, and they don't understand Medicaid rules, and they don't understand trust. They've never read a trust, but they've written a will before. And so, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And so, Mr. Middle Class, all you need is a simple will. That's one experience you could have. The other experience you could have, and I've seen it, is you go to an attorney. I don't know if you've noticed this, but some attorneys have pretty big egos. In the estate planning space, the attorneys with the really, really big egos, they call themselves high net worth planners. Like they only want to work with people who have businesses or federally taxable estates, meaning north of $10 million or even more, depending on the year, and that's the work that they enjoy doing. Those are the clients that they enjoy doing. So when middle class Joe walks in to the office, and you're not one of those guys, you're not one of those guys, I don't get to do this complicated tax trust. So here's your will, right? And we'll have the will for you, and you can come sign it next week. And they've never read Medicaid rules. In fact, I've even had some of these attorneys say to me that they think that this type of planning shouldn't be done. People should pay their own way if they get sick. Well, isn't that handy when you're in your ivory tower office and you work with people who have $10 million all day? Isn't it pretty convenient to say, well, you should just pay your own way when you don't live in a world where people can't pay their own way? Or the other experience you could have is you could go to an attorney that does the elder law stuff like we do at the Sechler law firm. And we're going to show you that, no, you probably don't just want a simple will if you're concerned about these things, because simple wills don't protect you from long-term care expenses, which for middle-class Americans is your biggest financial threat. Okay. For middle-class retirees, your biggest financial threat is not taxes and it's not probate. It is what happens if I get sick, because right now the government system doesn't help you with long-term care needs. They don't help. And if they're not going to help, then maybe I need to be a little bit self-aware and a little bit take the initiative to protect myself, because nobody's looking out for me in this space. And so that often it looks like putting assets into a trust so that if you need the nursing home, the government system can't take the stuff from you. And I've said that, like, my mission with my law firm and with this radio show is to help people protect themselves from this. I would love for the result to be that I get put out of business. I would love for them to change the rules and people just don't go broke in nursing homes anymore. Put me out of business. That'd be great, but it's not going to happen. No one in Congress is talking about fixing this problem. It is bigger than they care to tackle at this point in time. And so we're at a point in time where the American baby boomer, which is the wealthiest generation in the history of Earth, is now in their senior years. And 1 in 3 of them will need dementia, will need long-term care. No, 1 in 3 of them will have dementia. More than 1 in 3 of them will need some form of long-term care. Maybe we ought to take stock of these statistics and say, yeah, okay, maybe the guy on the radio has a point. We should go check out one of his upcoming workshops where, for free, he's going to tell us how we can protect ourselves. And then he's come up with a way to do the estate planning very affordably so that we can actually get it done. And then we can sleep at night knowing that if I get sick, which I can't prevent, but if I get sick, my wife still has a home to live in and still has some money in the bank. And my kids will still receive an inheritance, because after all, I've worked for 40, 50 years to retire to save some money, so that when we're in our retirement years, myself and my spouse have some money in the bank. And hopefully there's enough left over when I pass away to give my kids an inheritance so that maybe they don't have to work as long into their senior years, or maybe they have a chance at upward mobility, or maybe they have a chance to start a business, or maybe they have a chance to pay off their house sooner than we did. And I'm going to tell you the biggest thing that gets in your way of this is the need for long-term care. That's the thing. So listen, come to one of the estate planning workshops. You can register at sechlerlawfirm.com, Sechler lawfirm.com. We'll teach you all about this stuff. We'll tell you how it works, what it costs, all of that. So come to one of the workshops, register online. I look forward to seeing you there. Have a great week.